Howdy. Welcome to Ausgrave Royalty. I am Justin. We are now continuing our series on Bolen's gods and goddesses. For those just tuning in, I would highly encourage y'all to check out the prior videos. I'm telling you right now, this is like starting a TV show at the second to last episode, roughly. And it's even worse than that because it's like starting a new TV series on its third season in its second to last episode, basically. I have other seasons on archetypal psychology, of which this is a continued effort of. So, what we've been through here in season 3, hope you all have enjoyed it. We've talked all about the gods and goddesses. I did want to spend a couple of videos just kind of summing up my overall impression of the gods and goddesses. In this video, we'll cover the goddesses. In another video, I'll cover the gods. But I wanted to share some last thoughts, and some other insights that Bolen had in her book about how to navigate all these different goddesses. That is to say, archetypes, that is to say, all these different internal biopsychological predispositions and desires that are tugging at you. More on that in the other videos. So, I do have a lot of notes, as usual, but I'm going to start with my thoughts first, and then we'll come to Bolen's insights as well afterwards. So, first things first, it may or may not be expected, but as a whole, I don't identify with the goddesses as much as I do the gods in terms of what we've covered. In some ways. But I will say that I also identify with them more than I thought I would. Looking at my notes here, sorry. I appreciate the way Bolen articulates the various paths and struggles that women face in the modern world. And for those new here, she's writing in like the 80s. And so feminism back then and what she calls the patriarchy are different than what's going on nowadays. In some ways it's worse, some ways it's better, but that's not really the focus of these videos. It's more about understanding, the attributes in ourselves represented and manifested by these various gods and goddesses. That's the point of this series, but there is a dimension to how that's articulated with where Bolen is coming from. Like we've said on the channel, whether you're a man or a woman, you can still identify with the opposite sex's attributes. Like, I can identify with the goddesses in some ways, as I've talked about in all the videos, and women can identify with the gods' attributes, as we both have access to all the feminine and masculine attributes. It's just, the question is, how manifested and present are they in our lives? I would say out of all the goddesses, I most identify, ironically, with Aphrodite, especially of transforming whatever she touches. And we just covered Dionysus, and Aphrodite's a lot like Dionysus in that she's very transformative. And she transforms whatever she touches. And I would say hardly anybody in my life who I've met throughout my entire life has been indifferent towards me. People either love me or hate me. uh, but whatever the case is, it's usually like something is transformed. Either I'm changed or they're changed in some way to a greater or lesser extent. Hardly anyone is like sees me as just another dude, another mainstream person. Granted, that's happened before, and it's been quite perplexing because it doesn't happen often. I can't think of who it was or whatever, but I do remember having the thought like, this person actually thinks that I'm dull, or like just like a chum, like a worker bee, like a typical meta slave, you know. See my video on the meta or my video on Zeus about that. But I remember that thinking that very odd. Like that's the first time that's happened. It reminds me of one of my favorite movies of all time, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, the David Fincher version. I'm kicking myself because Stellan Skarsgård, that's his name, Stellan Skarsgård, the villain. He had this quote, like, he had this girlfriend named Liv, ironic, and when Mikhail is held captive by Stellan, blanking on his name, crap, what was it? Gottfried? No. Oh, I'm such a bad fan. Oh. Was it Gottfried was the father? Oh well, I'll just call him Stellan. Sorry about that. God, I'm such a terrible fan. But Stellan has Mikhail captive, played by Daniel Craig. And he says, while they were having dinner, like in a previous scene, Daniel Craig, Liv, and Stellan were having a dinner. And he's like, did you know Liv actually thinks I'm quite dull or quite ordinary? And he's like this serial killer, you know? It was a thought kind of like that, you know, not that I'm a serial killer, but it's just like, that's hardly ever happened to me, that someone looks at me or treats me like, people are either weirded out by me and that repulses them or attracts them to me in some way. Anyway, that was a long tangent. That's why I can't get through my notes, Justin. I'm also a little biased because I'm really into alchemy. So like studying alchemy, and I've mentioned this on the channel before. I have videos on it. Excuse me. But Aphrodite is the alchemical goddess, and it's not just individuals, it's interests. So whenever I have an interest that like I really get into, I feel like that Aphrodite part of me, just of goddess of love, right? Like bringing a lot of love to whatever is in my gaze. And that's a theme I can identify with, whether that's my friends, family, interests, whatever. Excuse me. Whatever's like in my gaze, it's just like I bring a lot of love to. Like I really get into it. But at the same time, I have all these interests like music, comedy, YouTube channel, all that stuff. So I suppose I can be a bit fickle when it comes to, sorry, excuse me, when it comes to like sticking with something. Ironically, that's the like, I don't want to say opposite, but on the other side of the coin, when it comes to my like friendships and family relationships and, and love relationships, I take those very seriously and I want to commit, and I don't want many of them. I want to like my best friend I've known for like 17 years. And that's becoming rarer and rarer these days, is, you know, with the apps and people becoming atomized and thinking it's cool to be independent. I don't need anybody. You know, I'm an island. You know, I don't need friends. I live for the grind, you know, money, status, shallow relationships, an impressive network. Nowhere in that was the word intimacy, you know? And like, that's kind of what, like, pardon me, cough. Whenever you're like, we've talked about this before, whenever you're outside the meta, quote unquote, like me, outside of the mainstream, you can struggle with low self-esteem because you can feel like an outsider in the world. And I've gone from struggling with that to embracing it. And I go back and forth. Sorry, this cough keeps wanting to come up. Anyway, ironically, I think I have encountered kind of an Aphrodite woman who like gave me that incredible Aphrodite attention, but also I felt the withering coldness of that amazing attention being fickly withdrawn from me, like really quickly. It's like a plant that's getting watered and bathed in sunlight, and it's like, wow, I can grow. And then all of a sudden it's turned off. And then the plant like starts withering, like, oh, I thought I found a good environment. I guess not. So I know the merciless, fickle nature associated with that goddess. In terms of the virgin goddesses, and Artemis, Athena, and Hestia, all of who I'll mention here, we've done we've done videos on. I think the culture pushes women in this direction, with the exception of Hestia. Hestia is like becoming enamored with your nest and being like the ultimate household manager, and that being like that's your meaning. That's like where you get deep satisfaction in a clean home, in a clean functioning home. And that's kind of what Hestia is, and being able to like share that warmth with others. But Athena, excuse me, and Artemis are like the boss babe goddesses. They, the virgin goddesses, they didn't associate with men. They were all about, Artemis is very like all about the mission, the huntress, right? Athena's like, has a similar drive, but it's in the mind. Instead of acted out in the world physically, it's more about planning a strategy. Not that she's not incapable of taking action. On the contrary, she's very capable of that. But she's more in the mind than like in the world. Yeah, judging from what Bolen has said, and she's writing in the 80s and is aware of the feminist movement and all that, I'd say I'd be curious to see how like the culture pushes women to be get in their Artemis and Athena energies, and becoming career minded. And again, though, Artemis especially treated sexual encounters recreationally. So she's like a bro. She's like what the manosphere warns about career women, how they're focused on their careers. So they're kind of like, they're kind of like bros. Like in terms of sexual, they don't really. The career is their priority, not a deep relationship with a partner, and especially not having kids. That's Demeter, which we'll talk about again in a moment. I find it strange that like that kind of mentality is like I don't need no man, but I will submit to a boss and if in a like sociopathic, uh, shallow corporation or opportunistic corporation. I'll submit to that, but no man can tell me what to do. Only the corporation can tell me what to do. I'll rise through the corporate ranks, you know. I'll show the world that I'm capable of playing by a corporation's rules. Well, very impressive. And this isn't to pick on women, it's to pick on anybody who it's my outsider nature, which I've talked about. It's poking fun at the meta. The meta right now is rising, like being a LinkedIn all-star and having like that great job and all that stuff. Whereas I think whoever has the most intimacy in their life is winning, regardless of income. I think intimacy is what we're all secretly starved for. And prestige and materialism for both men and women, but I would say more so women, has like been injected into the bloodstream so much that intimacy has kind of been lost. And only later it's like, you know, our realizations happening. And it's like the Sex and the City creator, you know, regretted not having kids, or, you know, she waited too long. And Jennifer Aniston, I heard, well, you know, that ship has sailed. It kind of just, I think a lot of women like get caught up in this Artemis and Athena stuff, or even Hestia to a different degree, but for a different reason. But they get caught up in it, and then later they're like, crap, I got duped a little bit. And, or why didn't y'all tell me that this was a shallow effort ultimately, you know, the materialistic route, you know, to everyone around her who's also caught up in it. That's the reason they're blinded by it too. With Hestia, I would guess that this is kind of a tragic energy in women, in the sense that, you know, it's harder to get by these days financially. I'd say more so for men than for women. Women are actually outpacing men these days in college graduation, or sorry, in graduating from college, even, and there's no more pay gap. If anything, it's the reverse. Women are making more than men. But I feel sympathy for women who want to be Hestia, who want to stay at home and like just do the simple the simple domestic things that are the backbone of any kind of household. And they feel a strong meaning for that, but they can't afford it. Like, to live alone means you have to have a job, and you have to be performing well at it, which means you're constantly having to tap in to that Athena, Artemis kind of style boss babe thing, at least from 9 to 5. So threading that needle of, like, I would say in 2023 in the Western world, it's a privilege to be able to exercise your Hestia. Imagine having like the financial security or a husband, and you finally get to rest and cultivate your home. But you have to have a home in the first place, which means some sort of financial security, right? One way or another. So that was just something I was thinking about. In turning to the vulnerable goddesses, Hera, Demeter, and Persephone. So with Hera, I do sense in myself an inclination to find a great spouse and be devoted to that spouse. And, you know, call it blue pill, call it what you want. Like, I thought originally, and I have a video on the manosphere, my experience in it and processing it, is that like I thought the way it was supposed to be was y'all both, the man and the woman, both kind of have nothing. They meet young and they pick partners based on, wow, I can really build something with this person. I really just want to share my moments with this person. And I didn't think it was about like status or pre-selection or great body or money or wealthy family or prestige or any of that. I'm under no illusions that stuff would help. But I thought those helped draw attention, not kept attention, right? Keep attention. Ultimately, I figured people would want to would see potential in one another for intimacy and say, with you, I can see us building something great, whether it be building a family, building a company, doing some kind of endeavor, right? And you both start from zero and y'all join hands and y'all are ready to conquer the world. Well, as Richard Cooper says, that it seems like women, that's not the way it goes. The way it goes is women wait at the finish line and pick the winners. So they don't care about your struggle. They don't want anyone at zero. Why would they want that when they can get someone who's not a zero, right? Who's already conquered their world and built their castle. Why would I want to go through budgeting and hard times and this and that? Why would I pick that person? Why would I pick the hardworking high schooler when I can pick the already successful CEO? That's, I think, that's the kind of crisis, so to speak, of mentality that's going on in today's society. Let me know in the comments what y'all think about that. But it kind of feels like now, whereas it previously was that the idea was to join hands with somebody you could be intimate with and build. Now it feels like as a man, I need to build and have my castle already. I need to be struggle free. And because it's almost like the woman might perceive why would, you're harming me. You're adding to my problems by having a problem of your own. Basically, any problem you have is a liability with whoever you want to join with. You're like a burden more than anything. It's just a shift that's, maybe it's for good or for ill. I don't know. History will be the judge. But that's the kind of waters I'm seeing around me. I also see a lot of Demeter. I want to reproduce and I want to have children and with a great wife, ideally. I think that it's punk rock to want to have kids these days. It's mainstream to not want to have kids, and it seems really, really strange to me. I think there's the Malthusian overpopulation thing, but that I see that having maybe intellectual power, which I don't think so. That's a different discussion. Read the book, The Human Resource. Anyway, the point is, I don't see that being very emotionally persuasive. I think it's more of a cultural thing, maximizing your own potential rather than sacrificing anything for a family kind of unit. It's very independence oriented, this culture is, Yoda speak. Not really family driven. It's individual driven. So kids don't fit into that. They're expensive, blah, blah, blah. All the excuses, and realities, to be fair. But if I don't want to surrender that, I think I'm a great dude and I think I'd make a great father, and whatever, it's arrogant. I don't care. I want to have kids. And I'm not going to do the world any favors if if the good people do nothing and stop reproducing, well, then we lose, whatever form that takes. I have in my notes here, I also sent some Persephone within me, like the innocence, the naivety, and the cultivation of sort of a blank slate persona. And I think one lesson most men learn in adolescence is that if you react to being teased, it gets worse, right? So developing like a stoic, I guess there's a difference between being innocent and being stoic. Of course there is. But like Persephone is all about letting things happen rather than making things happen. Artemis could have a lot of contempt for Persephone because they're opposites. Artemis is like, get out there and hunt. Do something, damn it. Persephone is like, la 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 la, in the fields, letting things happen, you know? So like, not being too proactive and letting life breathe a little bit. Like I always say, like when it comes to making music, silence is a powerful thing. Silence is what makes music. It's the space between the notes that any kind of harmony can be articulated. If you just have a wall of sound, it's not music, it's just noise. That's what Persephone, I feel like, kind of like how I perceive it. It's like leaving, like as a metaphor for your life, leaving some space between the notes, letting life happen just a little bit, you know, not always go, go, go. Yeah, I'm curious how y'all think that throughout all these talks, how Bolen has explained the kind of feminine consciousness, and we'll get into some closing thoughts here. She says, like, typically there's like, she calls it, who are you? It could be man or woman, but she's speaking primarily to women. Who are you going to give the golden apple to? Like, and she goes through that myth. I'm a little pressed for time, so I'm just going to have to paraphrase. But look at the myth of the golden apple, right? Paris is deciding. Ironically, it's a man. The point is, the golden apple has to be given your attention and your priority and your mindset. You have to choose, right? You have to make a choice. Are you going to be like the working, career-driven kind of? What are you going to give energy to? The Artemis side, the Aphrodite side, the Hera side, who values relationships and a husband, the Demeter side, who focuses on kids, the Hestia side, who focuses on cultivating a nest and a comfortable life and being generous with others. Like, what do you want to do? What do you want? Make a choice. And those are kind of various routes that society gives to women. Yet another route she articulates, a danger, is the woman who doesn't choose at all, who stays at the crossroads. She says, no other person can tell you if your heart is involved, and logic cannot provide the answer. And this is what Bolen calls choosing a path with your heart. This goes back to, and I encourage y'all to check out season 2, where we covered Robert L. Moore and Gillette's King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. That the lover, and I think even in women in 2023, as they're becoming more masculine in terms of bringing home the bacon and all that, being career working people, like that's something that's been alienated from men for a while, which is being human doings, not human beings. Like, do I even want this life that I'm living right now? That's the lover archetype, which we talked about in season 2. Check out that video. But it's like, do I even want to do what I'm doing right now? Asking yourself that. It sounds obvious, but when you get caught up in all this stuff, it can be overlooked. Anyway, that's going to do it for this video. Hope y'all have been enjoying the series. Let me know in the comments below what y'all have thought about all this, about the goddesses and Bolen's unique perspective on this. get the books. All right. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.